Welcome back, my little vintage wooden dolls, to
What to Watch Now,
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. And in today's episode, we are talking about Russian Doll, written and created by three powerhouse women: the star herself, Natasha Lyonne, Lesley Headland, who it's either girlfriend or wife. I'm so sorry, Lesley, I cannot remember off the top of my head. Her actually real life partner plays Lizzie. And Amy Poehler. So, like, right there, that's enough of a pitch to be like, go check out whatever they're gonna make. It's gonna be smart and funny. And it is. But I wasn't going to initially. The pitch behind the show is it's basically Groundhog Day. Natasha Lyonne plays Nadia, and she keeps reliving the same 24 hours of her life over and over and over again, continuously dying and then waking up and having to do it again. And I hate Groundhog Day. It's super boring. A lot of cliche lines of one character trying to explain to another that what's happening to them, a lot of figuring out what the audience already knows. I don't know, a lot of time it's not funny. I'm like, I get the bit, but it's just not enough to make me laugh, or better yet, it's just not a good bit. But I was floored. I was super floored. I think the last time I liked something that was Groundhog Day was an episode in Supernatural where they basically did that. And the idea behind that was it wasn't, oh my god, I just choked. It wasn't funny because if someone was reliving the same 24 hours, and in the case, Sam's 24 hours, he kept seeing his brother die continuously, it drove him to the brink of insanity. He had to see his brother die continuously. I mean, I think when he added up the time, it was something like a year and a half. I mean, he was mentally gone at that point. Loved that spin on Groundhog Day. Very dark. This, though, I'm convinced the writers, these women, went through with like a fine-tooth comb and went, hey, do you feel like people say this a lot or are expecting us to say that? Let's pull that out. Let's change it, make it different. Because for sure, the little nuances and lines and personality in between is incredibly witty, funny. You never see it coming, but whenever there's just even the slightest moment of a cliche, they remove it out completely. Just to set the tone beautifully for this review and podcast and give you kind of a little bit of a convincing of why you should go check this out, I'm going to read a couple quotes for you. Here's the first quote. Life is like a box of timelines. Let's sit crooked and talk straight. God, you move quick. What are you, a White Walker? This is one of my favorites, and it's the last one. So Nadia gets this guy she meets, Mike's hand, puts it down her crotch, and he feels her, and he comments that she's so wet. And she goes, I know, right? It's like, don't go chasing waterfalls down there. And he responds, Lisa Left Eye Lopez was always my favorite because, and then in unison, right as they kiss, they go, she burned down that guy's house. Like, I mean, it's just such a beautiful, unique tone and flavor that we all need in our life. Sorry for that gross sound, but I'm pretending I'm eating it. Okay. So today, we're going to talk about the plot, the twist of the unexpected character and how they connect, the ending, and why the show is called Russian Dolls. So let's start with the plot. You get it. Nadia is living the same 24 hours over and over again, but this is a significant 24 hours. It is her 36th birthday, and specifically birthday party. This is a big day for her. It's a big birthday for a specific reason, and we will go into that later and what that represents. Now, she's got some important things on her mind this birthday. Her cat Oatmeal is missing. And I have to talk about the starting point for her. It's extremely significant. It's got a lot of great metaphors behind it. I mean, the song itself. It always starts with Harry Nilsson's Gotta Get Up. And perfect, great way to be like, come on, girl. We gotta go live our day. We gotta start this. Come on, get motivated. But for me, it's the mirror she's in front of. Mirrors represent a reflection of your soul, just having to face a part of yourself that maybe you normally avoid, which I think sums up a lot of this character and what she's battling through plot-wise through the TV series. Then there's the water underneath her. If you notice, she's in this bathroom, right? But the water is always flowing, and it's on. And water represents rebirth. So she's in front of herself, she can't quite face it, she's being forced to, and she's having to be rebirthed. Now you could say she's being reborn over and over again and having this opportunity over and over again, but I would say she's being forced to change. She's like, the universe is like, girl, this is happening whether you want to or not, or I'm trapping you here. I'm like, she's like in timeout with the universe. But if that isn't a beautiful metaphor enough, there's the door. The door has this cutout layers. By the way, I recognize that door. I tried to look it up. I'm so sorry, artist. I tried to look you up. I'm pretty sure it's this artist from Brooklyn. I think it was made either 5 or 15 years ago, pretty recently, pretty iconic looking. Anyways, the door is carved out to show many layers. And then it's filled in with this purple resin with a hole on the other side. So as the light shines through, it creates this almost like tear and time looking type thing. It makes you feel very ominous looking at it. The great reflection on the black tile adds to the void appearance. I mean, right there, that really captures how she's feeling on her birthday, but this weird situation she's in. But then to top it off, the door handle is a gun that as you go to open it, it kind of clicks and shoots, so to speak. Not with actual bullets, but it's kind of like, you could say, staring down the barrel of a gun. You could say that it's the spookiness of facing death and being forced to do it. And it's definitely like a morality thing for sure. But you could talk about doorways themselves. Doorways are often symbolically seen as portals. An open door is like a new beginning. A closed door, though, and this is important because remember, when she's in the bathroom, the door is closed. The closed door, though, represents a dead end. It's like the feeling there's no way out. So we got opportunity and imprisonment. And while you could say that when she opens the door, she's walking through, she's going into an opportunity, that door, it's being literally knocked on. She's trying to fight out of this imprisonment, and it takes her so long for a reason. She's got walls on layers on layers. So, Nadia leaves the bathroom. That's how she always starts, and she always says hi to her friends, Lizzie and Maxine. Loved Maxine, played Greta Lee, and I loved Lizzie, played by Rebecca Henderson. Both just so funny, great little, they had a lot of amazing lines themselves, and this whole, by the way, this is like a side thing, this whole world was, how do I express this? You wanted to live in it. It was a beautifully created world. I wanted to know what everyone had to say and do. Don't you just wish we lived in a world where everyone said something stimulating and every moment was an opportunity to have fun and go somewhere? And Nadia is the perfect choice for this, by the way, because she's already someone who's very abrasive, doesn't really care about boundaries. She'll just go there. She doesn't worry about the consequences or like, is this a good time for them or even me? She doesn't have social anxiety in that way. So it's not crazy to see her put herself in a situation where she takes a joint from one of the timelines. She takes a joint from her friend and she goes right to this guy's bar, just walking through the street with it, and then goes right in the back where they're packing the drugs and just asks him. Like, there's no worry or concern, or this is who she is naturally. It's not just because of the situation she's in. She's this upfront. So on the first night, and this is an important part to notice, on the first night, she goes to her birthday, she's hanging out for a little while, she ends up meeting this guy, Mike, and they go to hook up. But before they go to hook up, she's mentioning about her cat Oatmeal, and she's looking for him. He hasn't come back in a couple days, and they go to buy condoms. There at the bodega where they're buying condoms, she notices a guy who's drunk, and he's spilling a bit of his, stuff off the shelves in his drunken state. And she has a bit of concern for a moment. I thought this was interesting because as we get to know her character, she's not heartless, but she's kind of the character that everyone both is pissed off for her bluntness, almost borderline meanness, but at the same time, there's something infectiously lovable about her, and you want to be friends with her and see the best for her. So it's like this very much love-hate relationship for her and anyone she comes across. But this is like a rare moment when she really wants to connect to someone else and help them, not for her own personal journey. But this gets interrupted because the guy she's with is like, come on, we got the condoms, let's go. So they hook up, whatever, he moves on, and she decides to go look for Oatmeal. When she goes to look for Oatmeal, she sees Oatmeal across the street, and as she crosses the street, she, bang, gets hit by a car. I gotta tell you, I fucking screamed and jumped. It was a very good bang. It really scared the shit out of me the first time. And so this is how the journey begins. She's going through this, like, I would say the first 2 episodes are like her on a detective case. The bedroom, the party that she has that was held in her friend's apartment is actually once a school for the Judaism religion. What would you say? For Jewish people? I don't know what the proper term is. Back in the day. And so she goes to try to talk to a rabbi. She even gets an ex involved to try to see if there's somehow a connection with what's happening. Another time, she thinks that the joint she always smokes in the beginning of this time loop that's laced with cocaine, which, by the way, the guy who made the joint, I can't remember his name, but I haven't seen him in forever. He used to be like an iconic role that's repeatedly used in Wes Anderson films. So I was like, oh my god, there he is. Hey, what's up? So nice to see you. A friendly, familiar face. So she's thinking it's one of these things affecting it until she decides she's gonna go follow this homeless man, which in one of the timelines they have this like nice meaningful connection. He cuts her hair, says the old you's dead. You can tell in these initial timelines, like this first like 15, in addition to finding out what's happening, what's going on, she's definitely feeling like a little sneak peek of what she will go through later, that general idea of stripping. It's like the universe is like, honey, you're dumb, let me give you some clues. Well, she follows this homeless guy. Keep in mind, he has no idea who she is, but she follows him to a center in the hospital where he can kind of be safe somewhere for the night from the cold. And she's in an elevator leaving the next morning, and the elevator starts to malfunction. She's going to die in the elevator. But while everything's red and blinking, and everyone's lying on the ground freaking out they're going to die, the gentleman next to her isn't. And she goes, hey, didn't you get the memo? We're all going to die. And this is when we go from the plot I initially introduced to the second part that we're going to talk about, the twist of the unexpected character and how they connect. This is when we're introduced to Alan. He turns to her and he goes, I die all the time. She says, me too. And then they die. And that's the moment when they realize they're not alone. Turns out Alan's been dying every day too. He too is stuck in the timeline. But his timeline is totally different. In fact, I would consider him the yin or the yang to Nadia's situation, both in personality and what they're going through. For Nadia, while it is a tough birthday to overcome, in reality, like, she's having a great time, she's at a party, everyone loves her. Theoretically, it should be the best night of her life. And for the most part, she's, fine with it. But she's very blunt, very abrasive. She just says what's on her mind. She's got a great sense of humor. She's very go with the flow, doesn't matter. Meanwhile, Alan's the complete opposite. He's OCD, he's ornery, very almost masochist in the way that he keeps putting himself through this very painful timeline he describes as the worst night of his life. He was going to go away with his girlfriend Beatrice, who you'll remember from Orange is the New Black. She was great in this. And when he goes to, this is his long-term girlfriend, by the way, for like 9 years. They were going to go away. He was going to propose to her. But this is also the night she breaks up with him. And it takes a couple timelines before he even realizes she's been cheating on him, which is awful. So he, instead of, like Nadia's timeline is so interesting, even in the beginning, before you get the unexpected character, because she never repeats the same day twice. Sometimes we have a couple deaths in a row where she's just dying from going down the stairs, which I thought was so funny. I mean, not funny in like she's dying kind of way, but I don't need to explain humor. You get it. But what I'm trying to say is they have totally separate timelines because he's living the worst night of life compared to her, and he is just hurting himself, cutting himself, going through it over and over again, isn't willing to change, explore, do different things. I mean, you could argue they're both struggling overcoming these, like, bigger deal issues of change, but in the reality, Nadia doesn't even know what's wrong. She's not even aware of the surface level problem compared to Alan, who's aware of it and just keeps putting himself in the same situation over and over again. Well, finally, they meet up, and they don't know why it's happening. They've got some theories about, and Alan initially proposes maybe it's about them being good or bad people. They talk about different timelines and what it represents. And eventually they come up to the conclusion that and this is so sad, Alan initially can't remember how he died the first time. And then he remembers. Unfortunately, he threw himself off a building committing suicide because he was so devastated with his breakup from Beatrice. And they suddenly realize they might have needed to step in with each other's timelines to prevent each other's deaths. And that's what needs to happen. Like, somehow they need to get back to that. They don't know how, but that being the case, that might be the whole connection, key to the universe, their situation. So we have on her side, she needed to intervene and stop his poor drunken self from committing suicide. And he says, if I wasn't so, drunk and irresponsible in that moment, I could have prevented you, which I'm just like, I don't know how, dude. She wasn't standing out in any way that it would have stood out to you. But he would have prevented her from crossing the street and then getting hit by that car. So that's like the idea between the two of them. Interestingly enough, they do have a connection. Mike, who Nadia sleeps with in the first timeline, is the same guy that Beatrice, Alan's girlfriend, is sleeping with and cheating with, which is so funny. And he's a snake. I mean, he is cheating with this girl, but he's cheating on her. I mean, he's just like the worst. It's hysterical. Now, we get a couple timelines where Nadia stands up for him. Loved that moment when she's like, put Beatrice in her place. Because honestly, like, there's nothing wrong with a relationship not working out. But my fucking God, like, she's kind of heartless about the whole thing. I don't know. It's like that devil's advocate. She was worried he'd commit suicide, and he did. But on the other hand, like, I don't know, like, you couldn't, I mean, you were going to do it anyways. You had to cheat on him too. Like, that just makes it so much worse. But I'm not sitting here saying who's wrong and right. At one point he stands up for himself. At another point, he even helps Nadia without her realizing. When I love their friend, Lizzie, really wanted to be a mother of Mastiff puppies, and Nadia said you weren't going to be a good mother. So that, like, haunted her the rest of their friendship and really pissed her off. And he says, Nadia says she's sorry. And I love how much that meant to her, and she got all emotional. But keep that important line in mind, the mother concept. It's something that sneaks up on you. There's little comments of it. You're aware of it. But it really does a great job of, by the time the really serious stuff needs to get addressed, you've been having a great time. It's been a mystery unpacking it. It's been fun seeing all the different versions, a lot of the I don't give a fuck moments. But at the end of the day, we get to the hard-hitting stuff. First, Nadia starts glitching. It seems like they had all the time in the world to figure out what the problem is, but the glitching starts. Nadia starts seeing herself as a child, just randomly, and whenever she does, she dies. Alan doesn't experience this problem, his own, like, childhood or anything like that, not at all. It's almost like Nadia is like, while they are interconnected in each other's life, she's somehow like the main frame. You know what I mean? They're co-connecting bugs, but she's the big mama bug, and he's, the beta on top of that, if that makes sense. I mean, she is a software engineer, so when she's experiencing this, it starts to lead to a scary thing where people are disappearing. I remember when the door disappears to the bathroom she's in. Again, open door. Maybe that's like the final opportunity for her to face the problem. And they both realize that they've handled both of their problems in multiple ways, but there's only one right way that will give themselves the closure. That's the main thing. It's not about telling someone to fuck off or get over it. It's about facing the issue at hand. So they realize with all this glitching, things missing. I remember the spooky one where all the furniture's missing and her friend Maxine's just dancing around the apartment and won't leave with her and says, I can't. I mean, it just gets real weird, and like to the point that no one's addressing it. Oh, and I forgot to mention this crazy thing. The Groundhog Day effect of the repeating gets more interesting when you look around you, and as it's building up to this big punch, All the fruit is rotting, the flowers are rotting. At one point, Nadia breaks down how different dimensions are perceived by us. But when she explains, like, this fruit is like the third dimension, we're seeing it in a three-dimensional way, and it's all rotting, she says this is the fourth. And when she cuts it open, it's ripe inside. Explaining that if they solve whatever the problem is, there's somewhere in space, there's a linear timeline they just need to hop back onto, so to speak. That's a little time thing, so if you need an explanation. I'm sure there's a theory out there, like an actual formula or explanation, but I was like, I can't get into this. I had to like go through my notes and organize everything as was, so this comes off decently cohesive. So she goes to the glitch, and what she needs to face is her mother. Like I said, she's mentioned her mother a couple times now, even in that little bit to her friend saying you wouldn't be a good mother. We learned that her history with her mother was also like her, very smart, lovable, but abrasive, all that jazz, but she clearly struggled with some sort of a mental health situation, where she even tells a story about having this certain type of African doubloon, and this doubloon is worth $1,500. She explains her grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and out of paranoia with banks and stuff like that, they bought a bunch of these, which would have equaled to be her inheritance, which she could have paid for college for, different things like that. And it's like a very specific number she remembers, like 153,000, boop, 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 boop. And that's not why she's solely mad at her mom. She's mad because, like, her mom would drive around New York City and just okay, bird, wants to be heard. Oh my lord. I don't know if that's picking up on the mic. Sorry about that. But she'll go around buying all the watermelons from all the bodegas. I mean, just insane shit. And she would always get her daughter to be on her side. And you could tell her daughter was so conflicted. I remember when she's talking to her kind of mother figure / friend Ruth, and she says, when the Social Security people, the child service people came to get me, I said I wanted to live with you. And Ruth said, no, you said you wanted to live with your mom like she told you to. And she goes, no matter what I said, I wanted to live with you. And then I did, and mom didn't make it the year. AK didn't make it to her 36th birthday, which is why this birthday is so significant. It's like, it shows like she did it. She made it past a milestone. And the point is, she had to forgive herself. She felt mad at her mom for putting her in situations where she didn't have enough food and so on and so forth. But at the same time, she loved her mom. So it's this really complex thing that she'll probably never fully be able to accept or put into words, because it's both at the same time. And then on the other hand, Alan even says to his girlfriend, you did try to tell me, and that wasn't right of me to put you in a position where, like, I would have killed myself. You're right. Like, I was putting too much stress on this relationship and even myself. So, like, you know what? I'm going to be fine. You get to move on. Like, I'm going to face the toughness. It kind of really reminds me of Chidi from The Good Place, where, the thing that made him, quote unquote, a bad person or put him in the bad place was that he never made a decision. That it was, which I do view this, like, I always play devil's advocate because I don't know, like, I'm not trying to, like, make things complicated, but it really is both situations at the same time. But I am someone who still has an opinion and makes an ultimate decision. And I have a huge problem with people who, like, let's say you see someone being, like, one friend being shitty to another and you do nothing. Well, by doing nothing, you are doing something. And it's bullshit. It's worse than, bullying. It's just such a passive, crappy thing. It says a lot about a person. And in a way, the way he was handling his life reminds me of that with, like, Chidi, and reminds me with how Chidi even dealt with himself and his own problems. So I'm just putting that out there as, like, a theory. So we're in the ending point. She sees the glitch. They both solve their ultimate problems that they're going through. And then from this, it leads to a new timeline. They're fixed. They think everything's solved and good. But when they are living their life and they want to go find each other, so they know for certain, like, hey, did we both make it back? Is it repeating? We don't really know until a couple days go by, because we've only ever made it 24 hours, to the next day, and that's about it. Now, this is the moment I went, oh shit. And also, I think is what made, like, ending this could have been fucked up. It could have, I mean, they just could have messed this up in so many ways, and I just applaud their ending to possibly lead to a second season. And also, I felt satisfactory. So when they meet up, they are in two different timelines now. Alan goes to talk to Nadia, but that Nadia doesn't recognize him. When Nadia goes to talk to Alan, he doesn't know her at all. But remember the first theory where they needed to then solve, like, helping each other? That's still valid. That was still a theory that is true. They needed to fix themselves first before they could help each other. Which is kind of like, I mean, isn't that so true? Like, you can't help others until you help yourself type thing. And when they go to help the other one, it's at that same pinnacle moment. He is able to convince that Nadia through the number of her inheritance that she privately told him she'd told no one else. And he's like, let's go look for oatmeal. Let's be together. There's a sense of he's addressing her mom, making it okay, prevents her from getting killed. They can go find oatmeal together. Prevents her even from, like, I mean, she fucks a lot of random people, so it's not bad if she went and had sex with Mike. Who gives a damn in that moment? But it was just what it was. It was like one self-cutting bad decision to the next. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyway, going forward, but on Nadia's timeline, Nadia's timeline made me, like, fucking cry when she was preventing him from dying, and at one point she thought he did commit suicide. And I loved, this is so important. She, throughout the series, keeps saying, I'm meant to live alone, and you can understand her trust issues with her mom and people. And what happens is, when she realizes he didn't commit, he went to go jump, but he still clearly is thinking about it. He says, he's like, I want to jump. And she goes, don't jump. And he goes, if I don't jump, will I be happy? And she goes, no, I don't know. Probably not. She goes, but I can promise you won't be alone. As in, like, I'll be there with you, buddy. Which, this is huge. Nadia hasn't had that type of commitment, even with her long-term friends. And this Alan, in this timeline, might never remember her again, but all she cares about is she made a connection with someone. Really deep down. And she prevents him, and that's enough for him from committing suicide. They're both smiling. They both walk onto the street. Nadia, that doesn't remember that Alan, and the Alan that doesn't remember the Nadia. And as they're walking, this is when it gets fucking trippy. This is the ending. This is where it gets all weird. I'm so confused. I'm so excited. I have so many questions. Throughout this series, there is a homeless man. At one point, he even is, like, talking and has, like, a cute little conversation with the drunk Alan. At one point, Nadia has her hair cut by him. He always says, I can save you, or come with me, or this is the new me. But he doesn't seem, to be honest with you, that he's aware of the timelines in any way. But now I'm left questioning that, because I still think he doesn't, but he clearly represents something, because he talks about the idea of giving up the bullshit. Once you can see through all the bullshit, there's like that's why he became homeless, because everything from the idea, the way renting works, the way jobs work, the way the system works, it's all bullshit. And that's what they were going through their journey, the bullshit they were putting in front of themselves from facing themselves. And so they go, both of these two different timelines of these two pair of people are going down a tunnel, and it's really bright. And this homeless man and the rest of the homeless community you have seen a couple times all just suddenly are throwing a parade. It's kind of one of those nonsensical, like, what's happening? I mean, they're not mummers, but, like, that's pretty much what's happening. It's like basically an improv to mummer parade. And without understanding, but this, like, connection, I mean, you can see it in Nadia's face. I mean, Natasha just killed it with the acting and delivery and everything, but both the Nadia that understands she's in multiple timelines and the Nadia that doesn't both get that same teary-eyed expression on their face. It's like they understand they're about to go through something. They're wearing this, like, gray big jacket over them. And as they walk forward, you can see the two timelines together. They grab a lantern from someone in unison. And they're kind of going ahead of Alan. You don't even realize it at first. And as they walk forward, they walk towards a third Nadia, a third one who's in a black jacket, also holding a lantern. And then the scene cuts, and there's no longer two panels. there's just the one Nadia who had been walking towards them in black with the lantern. And you see behind her the red hair and the gray jackets of the two matching Nadias passed by her. By the way, do you think anyone was like, did I just fucking see 3 of the same people? What's happening right now? By the way, if there's any triplets that exist out there, please, for Halloween, go around New York City and improv that moment with one person in one outfit and 2 and matching, and like confuse the hell out of everyone without saying anything. Like, that would be a great prank, like great, like harmless prank. So she walks through and she's leading the parade, and that's where it ends. You don't even see Alan. And then this is why I thought it was so genius. It was very symbolic, and it was beautiful, and it made you feel emotional, but it left with enough questions without leaving too much of a what the fuck. I don't know, it hit all the right nerves, or what's it called, senses. So I thought the ending was great. But we're still left with a bunch of questions, which is what makes a good season 2. 1. Did Alan make it back? Is he also conjoined with his other person? Is his other person in the parade? You know, like, is she alone? What happened to Alan? Like, where is he now? 2, are the timelines even done? When they solved the initial glitching problem, they were still in a repeating timeline problem. That's where we got the, just like they repeated the day again, but they were different timelines. Theoretically, she's in the nighttime in the second day, which hadn't happened before. So, theoretically, maybe she is in a new timeline, correct? But because this is Russian Doll and it's meant to go over and over and over again, obviously we're not done with timelines. So, where is she now? What does that mean? Okay, if maybe this is like a metaphor for like going through your like states of consciousness to what's it called, to enlightenment or something like that. What's the next stage? She's confronted herself. She's confronted, I guess in a version still human problems, but they said that change is hard, really hard, and it takes a lot. You know, you need someone else to make that change in each other. By helping him and vice versa, him helping her, that changed something in them, but obviously they did directly help the other. So that's just important to think about. But you're just left wondering where they're at in time, relationship to the other. Does she now remember? I'm assuming she does. I kind of got the idea she did. Is the homeless guy aware? What does this represent? Maybe the timeline now starts on a new day. And what is that? Is she dead? Like, it's so amazing that it ended in this way. I'm very satisfied, and I loved all the metaphors it represented, which is why we're going to get to our last statement. I promised you. I said plot, twist, ending, but now this is the big one, Russian Doll. I'm thinking, because they never say it outright. They never have a moment being like, isn't that like Russian dolls? You know, like I said, they removed every cliche out of this show they possibly could. Russian Doll in Russian, or like what they call Russian dolls in Russia, is called I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Matryoshka, or mother. Now, the reason why they call it mother is because a Russian doll is those little dolls encapsulated one after the other, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The biggest one is the mother. And she is the matriarch. That's what it's showing. It's giving love to the matriarchal society, and that within her, she hosts her children, her family, her husband, and also within it, pain, happiness, and joy. I mean, like, not to get weird, but like, if you birthed a child or had one physically inside you, you know, like in a weird, creepy, wooden horror doll kind of way, that would be painful. But there would be the joy of knowing you were protecting them, they came from you, so on and so forth. A lot of this, because it's mostly around Nadia's character, is about motherhood and that idea of peeling back the layers. She was affected by her mother, and she tried to affect everyone around her and have that kind of pain pass on. Yes, she wasn't a mother in a human sense, but you could say Oatmeal was her child. You could say her friends were what she was passing that knowledge on to, so on and so forth. And overcoming this was overcoming just the direct representation of her mother, but kind of what being a mother represents, and trusting people and being okay to care for someone else. So it's kind of perfect and beautiful and totally does a great job representing the idea of timelines and the complicated idea of fourth dimension. So really beautiful. Just want to mention that I really loved that it was called Russian Doll for that reason. Now, this goes without saying, you have to go watch it. It's really that good. I was exhausted by the idea of watching like 10 episodes and 40 minutes each, but honestly, I couldn't get enough. Nothing was a waste of time. They were all beautiful, really funny. It's going to blow your mind. Keep all these metaphors in mind. Have a great time. It's seriously so good. Beautiful little gem that came out of Netflix. But if you like this podcast, tell a friend, 5-star review it on iTunes, follow, like, all that good shit. You guys are my family. Friends, whatever. I love you. I'll talk to you in the next episode.